Sure. Let me just get YouTube going here, and I'm going to hit record in WebEx, and the time is 7:03.
Okay, so before I call the meeting to order, I want to welcome everybody to our January 13, 2022 meeting of the Energy and Environment Agenda. Due to the surge in local COVID cases, this meeting is being held electronically to ensure the safety of all residents and staff. All members of the commission and staff are participating from their houses or offices. For members of the commission, please remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking and raise your hand if you would like to speak. We will have roll call votes for each motion this evening, as well as for the adjournment. Before we begin, there are a few things I'd like to cover for those listening in or watching online. The public has two ways to view the meeting tonight. They can watch it through live stream on the city YouTube channel, or listening via phone using the WebEx calling number. There is no community comments during this meeting. However, the city is committed to hearing from all of you and receiving your inputs on matters. So the public can send in comments to the commission through the commission correspondent web form on our website. The recording of the meeting will also be available to watch on the city website tomorrow. So I just want to thank in advance for your patience as we work to conduct this meeting online, and also thanks everybody for tuning in tonight for the interest and for your interest in the Energy and Environment Commission work with the city. So with that, Grace, could you do the roll calling?
Yes. Commissioner Haugen?
Here.
Commissioner Haran?
Here.
Commissioner Lanzis? Commissioner Hovanek? Commissioner Lukens?
Here.
Commissioner Tessman?
Here.
Commissioner Takane?
Yeah. Here.
Chair Martinez?
Here.
Commissioner Rabat? And Commissioner Shumway?
Here.
Great.
Thank you, Grace. So our next item in the agenda is the approval of the meeting agenda. So does anybody has any comment about it? If not, can you do the roll call, Grace?
We need a motion and a second.
Oh yeah,
So
do the motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Haugen?
Aye.
Commissioner Haran?
Aye.
Commissioner Hovanek?
Aye.
Commissioner Lukens?
Aye.
Commissioner Tessman?
Aye.
Chair Martinez?
Aye.
And Commissioner Takane?
Aye.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Grace. So item number 4 will be the approval of the December minutes. So we need to do a motion and second. So if anybody wants to do the motion, or does anybody have comments, first of all, to the minutes? No, I guess not. So can we do a motion?
So I move.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Haugen?
Aye.
Commissioner Haran?
Aye.
Commissioner Hovanek?
Aye.
Commissioner Lukens?
Aye.
Commissioner Tessman?
Aye.
Commissioner Takane?
Aye.
And Chair Martinez?
Aye.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Grace. For our 5th item of the agenda, which has to do with special recognitions and presentation, we have today with us the Edina Communication Director, Jennifer Benaroth, and she will be talking about communication best practice and pathway forward for EEC initiatives. So, Jennifer, the floor is yours. Thank you.
And
Chair
Jennifer,
Martinez.
I did make you a presenter, so you should be able to share.
All right, is everyone seeing my screen? Excellent. Well, first of all, I want to thank you again for the invitation to come to your meeting tonight and talk a little bit about the city's work in communications and how our department works with both the Sustainability Division and the Energy and Environment Commission. Before we get into a discussion, I thought I would give you all a little bit of background about our department and what I call our 5 buckets of work. So first of all, this is our department's mission statement. Our job is to help other city departments and facilities identify information and messages that need to be conveyed to Edina's diverse audience and make sure that this is done in the most effective manner possible. That's really just our little elevator speech for why we exist. I'll be honest with you, having a communications department is unique. Most cities outside of the metro area do not have a communications department. I think we're pretty fortunate. I feel very lucky to work for the city of Edina, but outstate you won't find departments like us in local government. This is an org chart of my department. Underneath of me, I have 3 communications generalists. We have a senior communications coordinator, a digital communications coordinator, a part-time communications coordinator, and they work on all of the things that we do out of communications. We have a full-time video production coordinator, and reporting to him is a part-time community television administrator and 4 part-time video production assistants. We have a full-time graphic designer for the city. Reporting to our senior communications coordinator is the City Hall receptionist and also a part-time administrative support specialist for our department. As I mentioned, we call what we do, we have 5 buckets of work, and those buckets of work are publications, video production, websites and online communication, marketing and advertising for general fund activities. I am specific about calling out general fund activities because our department is not responsible for marketing and advertising for the city's enterprises. Most of those are rec facilities like Braemar Arena, Braemar Golf Course, Centennial Lakes Park, Edinburgh Park, the Art Center, but it also includes Edina Liquor. Marketing and advertising for those functions comes out of the Parks and Rec Department. And then our last bucket of work is media and public relations. So I'd like to tell you a little bit more about each one of those things. First of all, print publications. We are fortunate that we have the resources to produce a number of print publications for the city. We used to have a quarterly magazine called About Town. That was discontinued last year as part of our response to the pandemic, but we did bring it back as an annual report, and you will see that hit your mailboxes later this month. We also produce a catalog twice a year for the Parks and Rec Department called Activities Directory. And we produce a monthly newsletter called Edition Edina. Those 3 publications, actually the next one is true, this is true of 2. Public Works Pipeline, we produce twice a year in the early part of the year and mid-year for the Public Works Department. Those 4 publications are mailed to every mailbox in Edina. I think we're the only ones who can say we do a mailing to every mailbox in Edina. The school district's boundaries are different than the city boundaries, so that's why I think we can hold that claim to fame. We also do some specialty publications, including The Times. That is the Senior Center's monthly newsletter, and that is just distributed to members of the Senior Center. To give you an idea of the work we've done for the Sustainability Division in print publications just in the last year, you'll find that the annual report includes several pages on the Climate Action Plan, a staff feature highlighting GRACE, and an article on the city's Green Fleet policy. Public Works Pipeline, that's the publication that's produced twice a year from the Public Works Department. There's a lot of overlap between the Sustainability Division and some of the other work happening in engineering. A couple of those articles that I thought you would find of interest Salt use articles in both the early 2021 and the early 2022 issues. And then in the late 2021 issue, we had stories about fall cleanup and pet waste, specifically how it's important to clear the streets of leaves and clean up pet waste so it doesn't get into our waterways. Edition Edina, again, produced monthly, so that's 12 issues a year. You can see here in the course of the last year, we've had almost every issue has included something related to sustainability or the work you're doing on the commission. We had an ad for the Home Energy Squad last March, organics recycling articles in the April and July issues, several articles about the Climate Action Plan as we work through that process beginning in May, but we also had an ad in September and then an article that just came out in January about the completion of the plan. In December, we had an article about the sustainable buildings policy. That issue also included an article about the Next Gen Trees program that we are beginning as part of the ARPA funding. Our next bucket of work is video production. Video production, we really exist to tape meetings of the City Council, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, and the Planning Commission. But along the way, we've grown a pretty talented video production staff. They also do meeting production for the Metropolitan Airports Commission and the City of Eden Prairie. We produce some original programming. Agenda Edina is a news program that comes out after each city council meeting. Beyond the Badge, featuring the Edina Police and Fire Departments. On the Job is a program we do with City Manager Scott Neal, doing various jobs throughout the city. And Public Art Profiles is a more artistic piece about the various pieces of public art in the community. We also produce commercials for enterprise facilities. We do a lot of training and internal videos. And then you might recall on our org chart, our community television administrator, Dan Carpenter, I described him as a part-time employee for the city. He is part-time for the city, but he gets a full-time paycheck from us. The other half of his job is working for the Southwest Suburban Cable Commission. And we are their fiscal agent as a city, and their head end is at City Hall. So he administers the public and education access channels for the commission and escalates Comcast and CenturyLink complaints from residents. Grace has been on our programs a lot since she began work with the city. Several times she has given us sound bites for that news program, Agenda Edina. Some of the features we've had in Agenda Edina in the last year include 2 on organics recycling, a story on deconstruction grants in late August, again, stories about the Green Fleet policy, the Climate Action Plan, tree planting, and the Sustainable Buildings policy. Last year, we started a new program called News Hour with Walter Cronkid. That is a program where it's sort of like a talk show with a young boy who plays the role of Walter Cronkid. And the premise behind the program is to break down complicated information so even a kid can understand. So far, we've done 4 episodes, and one of those was on organics recycling. Our next bucket of work is websites and online communications. Of course, our primary website is edinamn.gov, but we also oversee the city's engagement site, bettertogetheredina.org, and all of the city's social media accounts, including those for the enterprise facilities. In all, we oversee 11 Facebook pages, including a brand new one for the police department, 5 Twitter pages, 5 Instagram pages, and a YouTube channel. We also oversee the agency account the city has for communicating with residents on Nextdoor, and we manage the city extra email and text subscription systems. Our next bucket of work is marketing and advertising. In this area, we develop communications, marketing, and advertising plans for specific programs, services, and activities. We develop advertisements, flyers and posters, brochures. We develop commercials, and we help plan special events. Last year, when we did things like this with Grace, some examples might include developing pamphlets, flyers, or rack cards for your distribution at the farmers market tabling events, and things like that. Our last bucket of work is media and public relations. We issue all of the city's press releases. We make pitches to local reporters. We arrange any press conferences or press events. We organize the city's town talks, which are sort of like town halls on specific forums held at least quarterly. And then we write stories and feature residents as hometown heroes. So some examples there. In the last year, we issued 4 press releases about the Climate Action Plan, again at various stages of development. We issued 2 about the drought and water restrictions or water conservation processes. With our latest recognition in Minnesota Green Step Cities, we issued a press release for that. We've helped with recognition or promotion of your Green Business Recognition Program. And then we issued a press release on the Inner City Energy Squad Challenge. Last year, 2 of the 5 or 6 town talks we did were related to your work. Again, Grace hosted one on sustainability as a general topic, and we did another one on organics recycling. So that's an overview of what we're doing day in and day out, but I know you all have a lot of interest in what you can do as commissioners. First of all, I think it's important that you know the city values your feedback. We welcome it, we want to hear it. You are always welcome to contact me or any other staff member in the communications department to share your feedback. You can also share it with Grace. We'll be sure to get it to us. We have a communications feedback group. That's a formal group. They don't have the same stature as you do as a commission, but this group gathers several times throughout the year. We present on a topic, usually one of our buckets of work, and ask for specific feedback in that area. We're always trying to get new voices involved in local government. So for the most part, board and commission members are not part of the communications feedback group. So encourage your friends and neighbors if they're interested to join that. That's a good way to put your toe in the water in local government, and maybe if they enjoy that, one day they'll apply to be part of a board or commission as well. Also share your ideas for stories, for photos, for features, for things that we do. Again, you can contact us directly as individuals or let Grace know, and she'll pass that on to us. If the group, if it's really important to you as a commission that there be a specific story, in those cases, that should always funnel directly through Grace. Otherwise, as individuals, feel free to reach out to us. I know there's a lot of information in the board and commission handbook about your use of social media. You are encouraged to use that to promote the city's work. The easiest way to do that is to share the city's posts. Find that post on the city's Facebook page and share it, or if you follow us on Twitter, retweet something. But you're also welcome to create your own posts. Of course, the guidance in your handbook asks that you do that in line with the action of your commission. For example, if the commission votes a certain way, it would not be appropriate for you to, after the fact, use social media to share your contrary or minority view. And then as a commission, I would encourage you to think about guest columns in the Sun Current. As a city, we can submit a guest column of 500 words or less every 6 weeks. Again, that's as a city, not just the Energy and Environment Commission. I don't have a lot of requests to get in that queue though. So as a group, if you decided you wanted to take that on, I would ask that you identify the topics, identify writers for your group to do those, and then we'll simply edit and submit those to the newspaper for you. And that is the end of my presentation, but I think you probably have a lot of questions for me or would like to engage in some dialogue at this point.
So yes, I will open the floor if anybody. John, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Thanks, Jennifer. That's really helpful as a rundown. I guess one's just a general comment. This is the first I've heard about the guest column option, and I feel like that would have been pretty useful for us to have known before. So maybe there should be a way for new commissioners when they're starting to have that be included in the materials that are distributed. So that's something that's known, because I think we would have probably availed ourselves of that over the last 12 months if that had been known. The second question I have is just generally, what's the logic behind Better Together Edina being a separate website from edinamn.gov, and how can we potentially use that forum? Because I feel like there's more engagement on that forum than the general website, and I think that would be a really critical option for us. And obviously, the city kind of owns and runs it. So, what would our options look like on that?
Sure. I'm not entirely sure I understand the second question, but let me give it a shot. So the city's primary website, edinamn.gov, the platform that we use for that, the content management system, doesn't have, at this time, robust features that allow for dialogue, right? And so these other platforms have sprung up. In 2006, we launched our first engagement site. Back then, we called it Speak Up Edina, and we used one software platform for that. And over time, that platform became antiquated, and that software provider just wasn't adding new features to it. So about 3 years ago, we looked at several different options. We narrowed it down to 7, and we selected Bang the Table to create Better Together Edina as you know it today. They're simply separate because our website platform today does not include that commenting functionality. I think most of us would prefer to just have one site where everything is there. Hopefully, our website vendors will start to catch up with that idea and desire from constituency groups like ours, and we'll be able to merge sites. I will tell you though that the traffic on the two websites are very different. We have well over a million hits a month on our primary website, our information site, and we have just tens of thousands on the Better Together Edina site each month. In general, as much as I would like to think people love to look at our websites, most people don't do that for entertainment. When they come to a city website, they're there for a specific reason. We hope when they come for that specific reason that we can catch their eye on something else, but most of the time they're there for one specific thing and they're in and out. On our primary website, last month's website report showed that on average, people spend about 1:30 on the information site and about 3.5 minutes on Better Together at a time. 70% of our users come to those sites just once a month. So that's the answer to your first question. Why are they separate? Our technology just makes it so. But we're always looking to improve, and as soon as we can maybe look at one site, I do think that would be better for the entire community and easier. How can the commission leverage it? Whenever you have a topic that you're just wondering what residents think about it, like when you guys were talking about the packaging stuff, before you even started your discussion, you could have started on Better Together Edina, with just hey, what do you think about this, before you even get into the research. Then, of course, whenever anything gets to a public hearing, we'll always use Better Together Edina as an alternative to the public meeting for people to provide their testimony. So whenever you're looking to gauge interest, you can certainly stand up a project there.
Thanks for that update. I mean, I think that I'll just comment with what I said at the beginning, which is I feel like if we had known about that, that would have been pretty useful over the last year. So is there like a formal way you'd like us to submit information on that? What would that process look like?
Whenever you want to do any communication project, always start with Grace, and then Grace will work with staff involved to get things set up. You'll notice on some of the projects on Better Together Edina that in the sidebar area, we have a feature called Who's Listening. It will always be Grace for one of your initiatives. But if one or more of you are also leading a work plan initiative, let's say, for a topic, we can train you on how to be listeners and participate in the discussion that way. Right now, the Arts and Culture Commission does that a little bit. If you check out the virtual art gallery, you'll see some of those commissioners featured there as listeners.
Great. Yeah, this should definitely be added to the training and development curriculum for new commissioners. This is great. I think we'll be happy to use that this year. Thanks.
Hilda, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm Tom. Yeah, I know. I saw you raise your hand.
Oh, I did. Hey, Jennifer, thank you, Tom Tessman. This was very insightful. I think this group has talked a lot about how do we create awareness and interest and engagement with the activities that this commission is all about. It looks like you guys have given us a lot of coverage in the past, so thank you for that. My question is, looking forward, how do we partner with Grace so that we can kind of get out in front of some of these initiatives and build almost like a communications calendar so that our initiatives for 2022 are locked down and in place? And how much lead time does that take? That's one question. And then like all these different, you got 4 different print platforms that get to every household. That's cool. You've got video production. Can we get some video content produced that represent these initiatives for social posts or whatever? So just talk a little bit about that and how we can maybe do proactive planning rather than one-offs, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So a lot of our editorial calendars for all of those projects, print publications or videos, is driven by work plans. The things that you see in the city council work plan, board and commission work plans, and department work plans, that's really what we're writing about and what we're using to tell the city's stories year round. So we're looking at, there are a few things already that were approved for your 2022 work plan that made it onto my work plan. And so like the climate action plan, right?
Right.
Every single one of those implementation efforts, we want to tell the story of those, and so that's already on my work plan. When you have, so we will always ask that if you're looking to do any initiative, make sure it's on your work plan. That's the only way support departments like mine can really prepare for it. Otherwise, as soon as possible, you want to be asking Grace to pull the trigger on working with my department on a communications plan, or if it's a special event, and advertising or marketing plan. The publications, they vary in the amount of time they take to put together. Obviously, Edition Edina, we put together once a month, and we're about a month out. So if you ask me today, can I get something in the February issue, you're already too late.
Well, I don't know the lead times. What's why I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think always for Edition Edina, be thinking 2 months out because
Okay.
we're working on it the month before one comes out. They're dated the first of the month. So the first Friday of a month is when my writers have content done for the next issue, if that makes
Great.
sense.
Yeah.
The Public Works pipeline, don't forget about the importance of that one. There's a lot of synergies between the work you're doing and our Public Works department. That one, we have a longer lead time. We start working on the late year issue in April, and that comes out around July 1st. And then we start work on the early next year issue in October. And those, because we print 25,500 of them, it takes the printer about a month to print. So if the issue's coming out January 1st, it's going to press around December 1st.
Got it. Does your team produce the mayor moments?
We do.
Okay.
Mayor's minutes.
Mayor's minutes, excuse me. I saw the one recently with how to effectively wear masks and all those types of things. So that was
Yeah.
good.
And
Of these 11,
that's one that's because that's pretty new for us. We're still looking, that's easy to get in. If you have an idea of a message you want the mayor to share through that, that's an easy one to make a suggestion for.
awesome. Maybe I thought I read someplace of these 11 Facebook pages or platforms that you manage, is one dedicated to the EEC?
No. I'll tell you, we have had requests from individual board or commissions or individual departments, and we purposely want everything to go on the main city one, so we're cross promoting each other. I don't want just energy and environment advocates to follow your page. I would rather people follow the city's page for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they want to hear about Parks and Rec stuff and learn about the stuff you're doing and be interested in it, than have just these smaller, 3, 4, 500 followers. I'd rather be in the tens of thousands of followers. So that's our
Got it.
strategy. Plus, honestly, it's a resource deal. If I had 30 Facebook pages to run, we would not be as effective as we are with the ones we have today.
Understood. Nice work. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Michelle?
So I know our initiative, the communications initiative, was vetoed by the council, but I wonder if that's kind of the wrong way to think about it. What if we had more like a standing communications group within the EEC so we could manage those possibilities and options that we're aware of now? Because it will take a little bit of thought out and having things on the calendar, but also somebody to come up with those possible articles and have them acquire in like where we could place a bunch of assets. Like, maybe we could put something in December's edition. Let's see, what do we have, or we could react to what we're working on. But I think we would need like somebody in particular who could be the liaison to the communications beside, like along with Grace. But so we could plan it out for the year, or once we get our work plan set, work with communications to see maybe what articles would be smart. But I think that's something that we have to think ahead of time because of those. So maybe it is where, it's more of a standing position, or I don't know what, or another work group that, something that I think the whole commission needs to decide on what we want to promote. But I think it's something that should be more deliberate and intentional.
I agree. I mean, I think we were embarking on an initiative so that we understood what was happening, not only with Edina, but other communities, almost like a little research insight, what's working best. There's clearly a lot of tools that we have at our disposal, so perhaps it's less about doing the research and more about how do we leverage what we already have and mapping things out. That's why I was asking more about the kind of like, how do you do a calendar and content and all that kind of jazz. So
I think Tom, those are two different initiatives, and the one that got nixed from the work plan is just about communications and surveying our options.
I agree. Yeah.
Michelle, I think that you're spot on with that. I think that's essentially what you're. I think it seems like that would be a standing work plan item, almost like manage the communications interface between the commission and then Grace, or the communications department via Grace. And I think that that's at least the equivalent of one work plan item in terms of the amount of time it would take from one of us or three of us.
Yeah.
I would add on to this, guys, that.
Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead, Corey.
I was just going to say, when we put that on the work plan, it was in the absence of us knowing just truly how sophisticated, Jennifer, you and your team are in this area. And I'll be honest, like, I'm blown away. You guys are doing a fantastic job, and there's so much more involved in the communications efforts than I think I initially thought, in terms of all the publications. And so I'm just very impressed. I think part of it is we have a lot of enthusiasm about getting certain messages out, as you can tell. And there might be things that warrant, let's get an article on X topic in a edition Edina on a quarterly basis or something. But there's other things that we've had a lot of enthusiasm around, like, how do we just quickly get a social media post out for something that's coming up in 2 days that might not be on the radar of the comms department and things like that. We had a lot of enthusiasm earlier in the year around, telling people not to mow in the spring. How do we just proactively plan to get an Instagram post about not mowing because, we want to protect bees, or not salting too much, just like these little bite-sized communications that can start to chip away at some of these things. And that's where I was kind of interested in your perspective, Jennifer, of like, yes, there's certainly kind of big blocks that we want to plan for over the course of the year. And maybe we ask Grace to add it as like an agenda item on the monthly basis of like, is there anything that we want to bring to Jennifer and the comms team as, a topic of the month or something? But is there a mechanism by which, Jennifer, if we find something that in the moment we want to try to amplify on one of the social media platforms, like, we can get to you quickly and get it out? Is that possible, or is that just not possible in city government? Like, I don't know how it works.
No, I think it is possible. Right now, I'd say if you've got that, well, the things you described, I feel are a little more evergreen, like predictable, that we know we're going to want to give the no message here, the water conservation message there, limit your salt message here. Like, that is an easy one for a group of you to just calendar out. So that's on our radar and we know it isn't lost. But if you don't have the time and energy to calendar out those, what I call evergreen posts now, so we are sure to have them, I think it's fine if Grace can manage it as staff liaison for you to send those to her, and she'll just send those forward to us via our help desk system. And then we'll get those out there for you.
Okay, because I think that was our work plan item for this year. The intent was to come up with kind of the editorial calendar around the evergreen articles, as you were saying, but also we wanted to do some fact finding in terms of just like, what are the channels by which we can get messages out? You solved that piece for us tonight and gave us a lot of great insights that we didn't know about. So Grace, like, do we need to have a formal work plan item that is develop a calendar of events, or can we just do this organically and have it as a regular topic that we touch on in our meetings, and we have you coordinate with Jennifer to say, this is the thing that we'd like to potentially get out next month?
Definitely the latter. I think that we can just check in during, in my staff comments, or as we share updates on the work plan items themselves, we can tag what our comms requests for the next month. And I do want to clarify too, the process, I do think it's still a good idea for us to calendar out what the commission, even high level trends, what you want to communicate about when. But to Jennifer's point, for these one-off, you know, those are welcome. And I think, Jen, you and I were chatting earlier that the commission doesn't even need to be the one developing the content. They really just need to propose the topic, you know, say, we want to make sure a social media post goes out about No Mow May or something, that your team can actually develop the content, add any graphics, that kind of thing. Is that right?
That's
Awesome.
correct. That way we'll make sure that we're following our branding standards, we're following the city's writing style and all of that sort of thing. And if we don't know the information, we'll work with Grace to get the information for a story.
Yeah, because I think
or
that's
that
a
sort of thing.
standing, that's kind of a standing offer for you, Jennifer, of like, it sounds like you have, and I appreciate it, a kind of a monthly topic that you've covered at different times around environment and energy topics. You showed like the edition Edina that had kind of at least one topic for each month, which is awesome. I guess if we could open up the lines of communication, no pun intended, between us and you to say, if there's ever a month where you're fishing for a topic and you're struggling to find something and want to throw it to this group, we will give you some great ideas, and vice versa. Like if we have an idea that we think is really important, we'll push it to you as well.
That's great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. The other thing I would really encourage all of you to do, everyone has their own communications preferences. So that's why maybe when you saw this presentation tonight, you didn't know we were doing all of those things. Maybe it's because you don't use social media or you don't read a lot of print anymore. So you're just seeing it all together at once. But really consider following us on all of our social media platforms. Sign up for City Extra emails or those text messages if you haven't already done that. When you see the publications in your mailbox, please look through them quickly before you recycle them if you're not usually a print reader. And really look at the web pages as a user. You guys are kind of insiders on this stuff, but really take a step back and would this page appeal to your grandma? Would it appeal to your next door neighbor? Like really try to take your commissioner hat off and look at it as just a plain user. Would this be interesting to me? Would I get the information I'm looking for? That sort of thing. And then when we're working on stories or press releases or agenda Edina segments, if any of you are willing to provide quotes or be interviewed for a soundbite, Chair Martinez has done that for us a handful of times. That's a great way to grow your professional skills in media work. Because we're never going to make you look bad. We want you to look good. You're our commission. But it also helps with our recruitment efforts for future board and commission members to see the variety of people serving. And I really think that when your friends and neighbors see you, they trust that information. They recognize you. They don't know me. I'm in a laundry room in Cannon Falls, Minnesota, but they know you. So they appreciate seeing your face on camera.
Hey, one last question. Do you have any type of input document that you would want us to use? Do you have like a little briefing document so that rather than just people sending through random emails, do you have something we could literally fill out that would say, here's what we're trying to communicate, here's some of the support points, why we think it makes sense, potential mediums?
I don't have that. The thing you're describing seems really formal, Tom, and that makes me feel like that for sure is feedback that should go through Grace. If you're just writing to me as a resident, just talk to me like a guy. Send me an email, call me up.
Okay.
I'm just not
That's fine.
that formal about that, but maybe down the road that'd be a great idea. We'll have to see how this goes.
Okay.
We do have a tool that we can give you when you're planning special events, or all the things you should think about when you're planning a special event. What's your goal for having this
Sure.
event? Who's your audience? Do you have any budget? Ask some of those logistics questions so that when we help you plan an event, we have a good idea before we even have that first meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Jennifer, I just have one question. Like if we decide to promote any of our initiatives, with how much in advance do we need to reach out to you if we think, like, for example, for No More May, we want to promote that. So when will be that a good time for us to give you information on that? Or
I will always say just the sooner the better. I mean, we could start work on stories right now for No Mo May and just sit on them until right before May 1st. But generally, I'll say 6 to 8 weeks in advance.
okay,
If you can't give me that, ask for it anyway. We can always say we can't turn it around. But ideally 6 to 8 weeks. If you can't give me that, let's see what we can do with less.
okay, perfect. And what I understand from all these instruments, these tools that you have, is that any topic we decide to promote, will they go in all of these, or it will go only, for example, in the social media, or it will go also in the publications? So it will depend.
Yeah, that's a great question. We do try to repurpose content across our platforms as much as we can. Again, we recognize that not all residents consume information in the same way. So we want to get it in print, we want to get it in video, we want to get it in social wherever we can. Sometimes though, depending on when the thing comes in, I might have too much content already for Edition Edina, let's say. There's just other initiatives of the city. Honestly, my best example here is you got your climate action plan approved at the exact same time that all this crime started, right? So you've seen a lot of communication from the city lately about attempted carjackings and how to protect yourself with the Lock Around the Clock campaign. If that hadn't happened, we probably would have been able to do even a lot more on the approval of the climate action plan. So it's all kind of timing, right? Because we're like the in-house PR agency for the entire city. So, you might not get in to Edition Edina because we've got too many other stories, but then you'll see stuff on social media or on video or that sort of thing. We're going to fit you in wherever we can. Another idea of things, we used to do these, this was years ago. We have these people that we feature on our website called Hometown Heroes. They're residents for the most part, sometimes business people or volunteers who are interacting with the city in some way, and we want to highlight the good work that they're doing. If you have people in the community who are championing the things that you're working on, right? So somebody who's really committed to the No Mo thing and lives on Minnehaha Creek, we could feature that person or that family as a hometown hero. And by featuring them, we're getting across the No Mo message, right? So think about those people. You know them, you interact with them. That's a great way to tell our story too, is it's through our friends and neighbors. So think of those ideas. We've had Living Streets champions in the past. Same sort of idea, the people who were championing or modeling our Living Streets philosophy as a city. So think about those people too, because I'm a firm believer that when people see their friends and neighbors doing these things, it's people just think, oh, I can do that too. I can do that too.
Okay. No, well, thank you. I don't know if anybody has any more questions. No,
No,
well,
that was terrific.
yeah, I think we're done with this. But Jennifer, thank you very much for your time and for the information. I think it was very useful for all of us.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me tonight. Good luck with
Thanks,
the rest
Jennifer.
of your meeting, and I look forward to hearing all of those ideas you have for me.
Great.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you. Have a
Have a
nice
Thank
good
you.
night.
Okay, well, thank you. I think this was a very useful information that we all want to take advantage of it. So let's move to the next item of the agenda. So it's item number 6, which has to do with reports and recommendations. And before we move to the work plan, the 2022 work plan, I know John wants to discuss the review and comment on the Transportation Commission report on trash hauling. So, John, if you want to present the documents you sent us.
Yes, thank you, Hilda. So I'm going to give just a brief update as to where we are, like from a mechanical standpoint, and then walk through a document that was in the agenda, which is an advisory communication that I am going to propose that we send to the city council as a commission. But that's something that hopefully you all have had a chance to read, and would love to hear any comments or discussion on that. So the ETC report was delivered to the city council on December 21st. There was about a 25-minute conversation roughly amongst the city council between the liaison for the Transportation Commission and council, but mostly it was amongst council. And it was clear to me from my perspective that they didn't clearly understand what the recommendation from ETC was, and they didn't understand what the Minnesota statute that governs organized trash collection entailed. And so the advisory communication that I've prepared simply is attempting to distill the statute in simpler terms to illustrate to council what our understanding of the statute is and why it was recommended that they move forward under that statute. The statute didn't even come up through the first, let's say, 23 minutes of the conversation, and the city attorney chimed in at the end. And even that comment wasn't clear because there was so much that was covered before that the conversation was just sort of circular, and it got a little heated at one point. So it was a very strange circumstance, and I think that I'm hopeful that this advisory communication is simply just going to help to correct the record and get council's eyes back on the situation as it is, not as it was presented. So go ahead, Hilda.
Before you move on to the documents you sent, I also saw the city meeting, and I have to say I was really surprised. I felt that the transportation planner of the city, I think he didn't really did a very good job in defending the proposal. I have to say that's what I felt during the time of his interview. And I think, as you mentioned, he didn't explain correctly what does that meant. So they didn't have clear information to make a decision. So I understand your frustration. I will be very frustrated. So I'm happy that you brought this into the discussion, and I hope everybody agreed to move it forward. But yeah, before that, have you talked this with the Transportation Commission, or this will be something that we will be sending from our side?
I have informally spoken with a member of the Transportation Commission who is somebody I spoke with most frequently while working on this issue last year. And she is unaware that we are putting forth this advisory communication. I feel that because it is simply a recommendation for the city attorney to become more involved to clarify the statutory requirements, and that the city council move forward with that in mind, I feel like it's a fairly simple ask, and it's one I'm comfortable sort of making unilaterally or attempting to make unilaterally with all of you. I can also say that I think there is some frustration on that side, and so I want to make this effort because I think we have a role to play here, and I think this is the right role for us given the information that I have gleaned from those conversations.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, you can continue with the document.
Great, thank you. Any other questions on the backdrop before we jump into this? Okay. So the recommendation or the action requested is for council to have the city attorney formally weigh in and provide clear guidance on this statute. The statute exists. Edina has to go through the statute. It's a statute, so a lawyer should be reviewing it. The city has a lawyer. There it is. So let's have that all. Let's put all those pieces together, and then actually have the conversation formally. Actually formally talk about it again at a council meeting in the near future. It wasn't clear to me that there were there weren't clear next steps from that meeting on December 21st. There were a few folks who seemed to have a couple of concepts as to what the next steps were, but as far as I can tell, this isn't on any agendas coming up for the city council, and it might be something that just sort of sits there. So the first recommendation is for the city attorney to weigh in. The second is for the city council to formally reopen this after getting the information that, in my opinion, is sort of the table stakes number, base level information that they need. So that's where the action request recommendation clause comes in at the beginning. The situation, we've more or less gone through that already this evening, and the background essentially is I've read this statute probably 10 times now, and it's my assessment and explanation in simpler terms as to what the process is. The statute is actually written like in reverse order. So there's stuff that happens up here, and then there's clauses later, like 4E is actually the first step. And then 4D is the second step. And then 4C, I think it is, 4B and 4C are the third and fourth steps. And so there's a bit of jumping around you have to do, but in the end, what I have here is a non-lawyer's version of what the statute says. And then the assessment is sort of the incorporation of the conversations that we've had as a commission, the conversations that I've had with the Transportation Commission, and some of the how that fits in with the conversation that council had. It's sort of 6 points that directly encapsulate, in my opinion, encapsulate all of those conversations. And so I don't know if it makes sense for us to go through everything one by one, or if we just want to open it up for conversation on this. If anyone has questions, I don't want to just sit here and read to you guys for 15 minutes, and it's not the most interesting content.
So John, I went through the documents and I had some comments. I'm with you. I will, if you ask me, I will support going forward with this. But I just have some comments in the part of the assessments that you're proposing. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, you're proposing to start first with this, with the city, start talking with the haulers. But I think the city doesn't have the information to start that. Like,
that was my question too. Were steps 2 and 3 switched, John?
So the way the statute is written, and again, I am not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be a lawyer. The way the statute is written is there's the requirements for step 1 to be the first thing that they do. Elected officials meet with haulers to discuss those items in there.
Yeah, the thing is, like, that was one of the points that they brought during the discussion on the meeting of the city council, is that they didn't have that information. So I think that I put my comment was if we can go with 1 and 3 instead of doing 2, because 2, I don't think they have that information.
These are if I'm reading the statute correctly, this is a non-negotiable set of steps that have to happen in sequence. And at no point does it require the city to arrive at an agreement with the haulers. So the thing with council's position on not having enough information to move forward with talking to haulers, and then also being very concerned about the effects of this on haulers. It is a bit of, in my opinion, doublespeak, because essentially the statute roots them into this conversation where they get that information. And it doesn't, so this step doesn't also require, it doesn't require a series of meetings. It doesn't require a specific duration of meetings. All it requires is that there is a meeting between elected officials and haulers to discuss these issues. And the conversation at council was very carefully considerate of making sure we do this correctly and go forward with as much information as possible. And I agree with that. And I think the only way we get to that point is through this options committee, where there's a thorough evaluation of this by an appointed committee, appointed by our elected officials, and they go through the statute. That's the Edina way. Like, Edina doesn't do this unilaterally. Edina doesn't do this fast. Edina doesn't just say, all right, let's do it. But the only way to get to that point and to do that correctly is to go through step 1 and step 2. Again, if I'm reading it correctly, which I think.
Yeah. Based on, no, I saw the annex that you put, and it says that you have to start with that one. But the part that I'm afraid is that they will probably say, well, we don't want to go and start negotiation with haulers when we don't have enough information. That is why. But we can always send it like that. But I don't know if it's gonna be counterproductive. That will be my comment. But.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John, I'm reading the end notes now, and you've read this far more times than we have, but I'm wondering if you're putting the steps in the wrong order. I agree with you that the city elected officials have to meet with the haulers before they enter into negotiations, but this sub-step 4B seems like it would be before both of those. And 4B is the options committee.
In my opinion, it should be. Where is it?
Yeah.
Like, where in the 4B did it make you think that came after failed negotiations?
It's in 4D.
Yeah, I think.
You know what? I don't think I pasted that part of it in there because I was trying to abbreviate. But let me pull the statute up real quick, and I can find the verbiage. It's a sentence in there.
No, but it's there. It's the 4E. It says before the exclusive meetings and negotiation under subdivision 4D, license
Right.
elected official must have to meet and confer.
4E is before.
I know, but
4D.
why would we do 4E and 4D before ever sitting down and doing 4B, which is
if you guys will give me 2 seconds,
you want to examine?
I have the answer. If you'll just give me 2 seconds. So 4E is before 4D. Within 4D, and I did not paste this in again because I was just trying to like simplify this as much as possible. I'm talking about professional communications. What I started here with 4D is the city must notify the public. There is one sentence in advance of that. It's before establishing a committee under subdivision 4A, which is the options committee, to consider organizing residential solid waste collection. A city or town with more than one licensed collector must notify the public and all licensed collectors in the community. The city must provide a period of at least 60 days, etc. So
yeah, but it says it has to inform, right? They don't have to meet with them.
Just it's not negotiation. It's just a public notice.
That we want to start like you mentioned in the beginning. We just want to start like the process, right? We're not doing it. We just want to start evaluating the process.
This is where the city attorney needs to weigh in, because if you read the clause in its entirety, and honestly, if I thought we were going to be digging into this in this detail, I would have just included the whole thing because it's only one more sentence. But the way I'm reading it, is there a chat function in this, Grace?
There's not a chat,
you can share
unfortunately, since it's public. But yeah, if you want to, I can make you a presenter, if you'd like.
Yeah, that's fine.
John, I think while you do that, our questions are probably a preview of what the council is going to be asking then as well. So I'm just trying to make sure we button it up for you. Help you.
Well, I'm 100. I love this. I love this. I mean, I think at this point the issue has become so obfuscated for council that the only path forward is clarity, and that's the reason why I'm hoping to get here. And I mean, I don't see Edina. Oh, you know what? My computer won't let WebEx do it, and I'll have to like nuke the whole session, so it's not worth it. If you look up the statute number 115A.94, you'll find the text, and it's just the only thing on the page. It's pretty easy to read. So
I think, Michelle, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, just a question. I think, unless this has changed, but we also need to keep in mind when this statute was written, I think it was very pro hauler. So it's intentionally going to be difficult. So just to keep that in mind, like it's pro hauler.
absolutely.
And then, John, when you said it was like the last 3 minutes they got into the discussion of the statute. So what was the rest? I'm actually going to look at the meeting because I'm very curious, because in the information provided to us, I know they've said in past times when this has been brought up, it has been an issue of the city is split 50-50 on whether to do this. So is that weighing in more, or is this statute piece a heavy piece? Like, are they just, I always thought because of that, but
the whole issue is relatively fraught. And I think we can all say that it's more or less a fact at this point. It's something that there's a lot of opinion and perspective on. And yeah, so Grace, could you highlight 4D as in dog? And so the what I read on this is that it's a statement in entirety, and that has to happen in entirety before 4B. If that's wrong, and this is simply a notice situation that's separate from the 60-day meeting and negotiation period, then I 100% agree that the options committee is way more logical as a next step. So I think the city attorney weighing in on this would be really useful. But Michelle, back to your question. So there was discussion about the city being split. There are some council members who are interested in exploring that, and that aren't, therefore going to shy away from it just because it's roughly, split. I think there is some, I think there are folks who don't feel we have a clear sense of whether the community is actually split. Is it 50-50? Is it 55-45? Is it 60-40? Is it swinging in one direction or another? I think there are people who have data points to suggest that it's swinging in favor of OTC and has moved that way over time. But council's been discussing that, and you know what? This is why they're elected. This is the type of stuff they're elected to deal with, and they need to have all the right information in front of them. And so I think there were other points in the conversation where it was suggested that the commissions should be collecting all the hauler engagement and the resident engagement data on this and crunching it and sort of providing it to folks. And I think that there's I think one of those more strongly worded assessment items in here was that commissioners should be doing more to get this information and to process it and provide it so council knows what they're voting on. And I don't think commissions have any business conducting conversations with haulers. I don't think commissions have any business attempting to take the sentiment of the public to represent it as comprehensive and actually representative sample of the city. And that's the job of the city to do. And this is at the point where there are enough people that want to do it, that want to move forward with it, that it should be done in earnest. And we got a law to follow if we're going to do that. That's kind of the perspective I have. Go ahead, Michelle.
So it sounded like there was a lot of just confusion in what the council understood. So is this advisory communications a piece to at least get them to understand the legal issues, the legal stuff, and hopefully our city lawyer understands it, but is that to like at least get them realizing what the steps are. And it sounds like it's not like we're just trying to jump into this. There are certain steps that we have to take. So this would at least take care of that piece. But then it also sounds like there's just a ton of other information that really needs to be clarified as well. And what role do we play, or the Transportation Commission plays in that?
Yeah, the Transportation Commission had put together what I consider to be a pretty decent report that covered a lot of, like, assessed a lot of the data points that we would have access to on this issue, and presented it to council in a way that, in their, in the opinion of staff, didn't justify moving forward with OTC, but none of that was really discussed. The conversation was quite circular, and this issue was not adequately heard by council, and that this essentially is an attempt to get there as a starting point. Just like, look, we recommended, two commissions essentially recommended we move forward with this, knowing that there was a statute to govern it, and the statute didn't even really come up in the conversation. So let's get that back on the table. Let's sort of just figure out what we're talking about here, and you can decide whether you move forward with that, knowing what it is. And I would imagine if they decide not to move forward, that something might get kicked back to us, but I think that we'll get a more granular assessment, rather than just, should we do it or not? It's, all right, well, we decided not to for these 3 reasons. Let's knock those down 1, 2, 3, or at least let's get some more data on those 3. And I think that's where our role might come in if they decide not to move forward.
Yeah.
Hey, Jack, can I just? Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Now go ahead, Corey.
I was just going to say, the attention that the council is able to spend on this, in the multitude of all the other issues they have, is going to be limited. So what I'm wondering is, like, can we distill this down to 1 page and have it be something as straightforward as, like, a couple heavy hitting bullets of, like, what exactly is it? And it's, we're not touching organics, we're not touching recycling, we are touching trash only. Other cities in the area have done it. Let's list the cities. Market share has to remain the same, and it's set for 7 years. And just have, like, I don't know, 3 to 5 really heavy hitting bullets, and then have something that we've all kind of coalesced around of, there's a statute in place that the state of Minnesota has had in place. It's going to require legal review from the city attorney. Here's the link to the statute. We'd ask that the city attorney and the city manager get involved to take this issue forward, because I think your intention here is to just clear up the confusion, and I worry if we put the onus on them to review the 4E, 4B, 4D, it's just going to put everybody in a tailspin when we can just have the city attorney do it for them.
My
Tell me if I'm wrong. I'm fine with that.
My only comment with that, Corey, would be that, as John said, there was nothing defined what were the next steps. So I think if we don't push them and give them the clear information, probably will go to the city manager and the staff and stay there, because there was nothing, not a clear action. If you see the minutes that they they wrote about the discussion on that item, it doesn't say it. I guess it says something like, staff will bring forward further information for consideration for future work session, but they didn't set a time. So I guess if we don't move this forward and quickly, maybe we'll just go away and then nothing's gonna happen. So I understand that you don't want to give them a lot of information, but I think that was one of the things that was missing during the presentation. The information that was given, it wasn't complete, so it was difficult for them to have.
We can give them the statute. We can give them the statute, and we can give them like a couple of very punchy bullets of exactly what this is. And then I guess, Grace, like, can we not make an ask of like the city to say, hey, we want the city attorney to very clearly advise the council on what the next steps are here, as opposed to us trying to do that, have the attorney do it. And maybe he didn't perform well in the last meeting because he was put on the spot on something he didn't know anything about. But if he read up on it and prepared himself for a meeting, he could show up and
I think the
interpret
city
these
attorney
things and
did
give
great
the.
last time. Just to clarify, I think
He
I think
did?
the city attorney did
Okay.
fine. Yeah, the conversation
Okay.
was so circuitous that what he was able to offer wasn't received with accuracy.
Yeah.
But they were spinning on the other things of just like what it is, right? Like
Mhm.
organics and throwing things
Right.
out there that were completely unrelated. Okay.
Yeah,
but-
Corey, to your question, does the first action requested on the advisory communication get at what you're requesting here? That everyone wants the city attorney involved. It's complex legal language. First step is just to get the city attorney to essentially prepare a brief or something or have a discussion with city council on the topic.
Where is that stuff?
Look at page 18 of the agenda, or it's the first page of the advisory communication. And it says, direct the city attorney.
Yeah, I've got that.
Yeah.
I'm on the first page. Sorry, I don't even see that.
Yeah, so there are the actions that we're requesting if we decide to move forward.
There's been a lot of noise. Council's received a lot of commentary on this from people involved. So,
Oh, sorry,
I
guys.
think-
I was in the situation section. I didn't see the actions above the situation. I apologize. Yes, that's the action. 100%.
yeah, and I think that like I think our recourse. So if the city attorney reads it the same way I'm reading it, if a real lawyer reads it the same way a non-lawyer reads it, then I gather that council might be apprehensive. They will walk away from that conversation knowing what is and isn't OTC, what moving forward on that looks like, and they will need to clarify reasons why they're not going forward with it. That is workable for us as a commission or for Transportation Commission, in my opinion, as a set of next steps. Probably not hauler engagement, probably not a comprehensive study with residents, but if they come up with other points that they need addressed, all right, they'll kick it back to us and we can have it on a work plan. And yeah, we're waiting 2 more years to have this, have the city jump into this and investigate it thoroughly, but we've moved the ball. And if they just see this and decide, oh yeah, there really isn't a downside to jumping into this because are not obligated to do it if we move forward under the statute. We just need to try and move forward. And through that process, we'll get a ton of information. That's the information that directly answers all the questions we have. Then great. And so that's essentially where I see this headed. And if it doesn't go our way, I think we still have options and would make a strong case in June to have this added again to our work plan with the comments that they make as incorporated in what we work on.
Does it make sense adding some of that language, Summer John? Like the whole point of like, as we go through this, what we learn and how it then informs us in the decision as we reopen a discussion? Like, feel like if they realize like going through this process, they will gain more knowledge. It might be worth stating that somewhere, or
I think that this is an inconvenient thing for them to be dealing with, and the more I don't think there's a lot of like direct interest in adopting this because I think everyone realizes this is a bit of a headache issue, and so in my opinion, highlighting that this might take a few more years is not necessarily great. I mean, I don't know, everyone can listen to this, so if they're listening, they can hear it. But I'm like, okay, let me be clear. If we decide as a group that we want to workshop this, like I'm 100% okay with that. I just want to state that very clearly. I'm not gonna fight for this. I want this to be representative of our collective thoughts. And I mean, obviously this was just like written by me. So please, if everyone feels that we need to sort of refine the actions requested, let's do that.
So my only question is this the best first step to get this continually in their thoughts? Like, is this the best first move? Because I think we need to keep it in there. I know they have a lot of stuff to do. That's why I think we need to make sure we keep this on their radar, because they do have a ton of stuff, and I think this is important. And there's been a lot of work that's been done with the report and what you've done. So is this I think it might be like, is this just a good, easy way to just say, hey, let's look through this statute, and maybe, like you said, it just keeps them involved. But just to open that up, is that the best next step for us? Which I'm not saying it is or isn't.
I think we need to educate them. It sounds like in some ways, though. That's like John. Part of when I popped it open, and I hadn't read it in advance, but advisory communication on organized trash collection. I was thinking that we would maybe lay out a little bit more like, this is what the issue is, the context for what we're talking about. It's, you know, setting market share for 7 years. It's only trash, but then also like equipping them with what are the arguments for and against this very transparently. Like, here are the 3 things you're going to hear from constituents about why they really want this. Here are the 3 things you're going to hear from constituents who are really not going to want this. And here's why we as the commission think that this is in the best interest and something to move forward with. And that's what's kind of missing. It feels like we're kind of getting hung up on like the procedural aspect of interpreting the statute. Let's leave that for the lawyer, and let's put in why we think that this is worth doing.
I mean, that was part of the ETC report. That was their whole point, was to put a report out there to review and recommend the whole issue. Go ahead, Hilda.
Yeah, I have a question, but it's not for you, John. It's for Grace. So Grace, I'm thinking, I have 2 questions regarding this. So is the way to move this forward is we have to do it to the city council, or maybe we can do it through the city manager? That's one. And the other one is it only an advisory communication, or can somebody, maybe like John, go and present again? That's the second. So I don't know if any of those are possible.
The first one is that the role of commissions is to advise council. And so your most direct path for action is directly to the council. Know that the city manager is aware and is observing those communications. So if this were to be approved by EEC and it goes on a council agenda, the city manager sees it. He knows he is the first staff person that any council member or mayor calls when they are getting a lot of hits on a particular topic like organized trash. So that's the answer to your first question, is council is your best pathway. And the work plan.
Can we, like if we present this, we decide to move it forward, can we go and present it, or we just send it to them?
You send it to them. Yeah, you can't, you really cannot do a in-person presentation on an item that's not on your work plan. That is the power of the work plan. And so instead of that, the most effective path of communication is this advisory communication, which comes to council in 2 ways. And Michelle and I did an advisory communication last year. So it comes to their agenda as a consent agenda item. And so they are not obligated to discuss it, but it is public. Anyone can see it and read it, and they can discuss it if they choose to. The follow-up to putting it on their agenda is the week of that council meeting. I always encourage the commissioners to email council and say, hey, this is on your agenda. You attach the advisory communication. You say, this is on your agenda. I encourage you to read it and discuss it and consider, the actions recommended. So it's a softer nudge than the report and recommendation that happened in December from the Transportation Commission. But it is the nudge that's available to the commission in this situation.
Yeah, and one comment on whether this is the right next step or not. The reason I think it is that conversation on December 21st got so far off course that it needs a fairly basic return to the course. And I think that knowing that there's a clear structure that every city has to go through is the cleanest way to show that that how far off they got, and to sort of bring them back to the reality of the conversation. I think there was enough opinion in favor of OTC in the Transportation Commission's report, and I feel like in general it probably would be a useful document for them to have a pros and cons list, sort of a column A, column B. I feel like that would turn the conversation back into a debate on the merits of the program, and instead, honestly, I think what we have to force here is just a conversation on what is the next step, and have the attorney weigh in on that, and then the rest will just sort of follow. But that's certainly an opinion.
Okay, so in order to move it forward, we need to, I think we vote, right, Grace?
You
Or
do
if-
take a vote, Michelle?
I just, a question was the city attorney at the meeting?
The city attorney, I'm pretty sure it's the city attorney
Yeah,
that
he was
was
there.
present.
Okay.
Yeah, he mentioned this statute, but he didn't mention. He just mentioned that there need to be these meetings with the haulers and this committee, but he entered in the conversation very late.
Okay.
I guess
So-
I assume he was researching. I don't know, because he
entered.
didn't. Yeah, very late.
He answered a question regarding comment from somebody on council to kick this back to a commission, so that the commission could do the hauler engagement, the resident engagement, all that stuff.
Okay.
And the city attorney's comment was that from his perspective, it might be duplicative of the efforts required under the statute to do the same hauler engagement, resident engagement, which, I mean, I agree.
All right, because the one part is like, I just want to make sure we're not stepping on anybody's toes with this, or being disrespectful of the city attorney. We're not saying, oh, you didn't do your job and here it is. I just want to make sure we're, I don't know, being respectful. And then on top of that,
I'm certainly not coming from that perspective.
And then it sounds like he actually opened the door for us to present this communication in a way, because it sounds like he didn't have enough time to educate commission. Because I'm just trying to think of all right, so how, well, anyways, it sounds like he opened the door to this statute, which council isn't really familiar with. So now we are providing them, saying, hey, if we can everybody be educated on this, and the next steps would follow. So your action would then fall into number 2 to then, and now that you have this information, to then kind of reopen the discussion.
I think the city attorney's involvement was he wasn't asked a question until very, very late in the conversation. The statute never came up from the Transportation Commission staff liaison. The city council members appeared either completely unaware there was a statute, or none of them discussed the statute during the conversation up to the point where the attorney was consulted. So I think this is simply, I mean, if I had to go in front of council tomorrow, I would not be talking about, I wouldn't want to go talk about how inadequate the conversation was before. I wouldn't want to go over any of that. I'd literally just be like, hey, did you know there's a statute for this? And can you get the city attorney to talk about that statute? And maybe I'd shoot an email to the city attorney in advance of that saying, hey, I'm going to raise this issue. Can you be ready to talk about it and what that means for the city? I mean, it's just, honestly, it's the only path forward I see. And I have opinions as to where the weakness was and how we got to this point from having what I consider to be a really robust memo submitted to them, a month and a half ago. But in the end, I think we are where we are, and the city attorney is the next stop on the train.
And then you said you haven't been in communication with the Transportation Commission, correct, on this? Is this something that we should have them in the loop, though?
Not officially. They feel the people I spoke with feel that they feel the same way about the conversation that Hilda and I do, that it wasn't a very productive conversation at council. And so I think if we had to strategize with them on what a next step would look like, I mean, they're free to make their own next steps as well, or none. I think if we had to strategize with them, it's not on our work plan. I mean, I don't know, I feel like we're spending a lot of time on this and it's not on our work plan, so maybe that's totally fine. But I don't know. I mean, I think that like I said about the memo in general and like being open to comments on that, like I'm open if we feel strongly as a group that engaging the Transportation Commission again is a good next step or something to consider. I'm certainly open to that too.
John, if I can chime in a situation like this where an advisory communication is coming from a commission, very similar to the way that ETC wrote a report that EEC commented on, the EEC would write this communication and perhaps invite the ETC to jointly sign on. But for everyone's sanity, the city typically discourages joint communications just because of the time it would take and complications. So something to keep in mind.
Okay, I agree, but at least we need to inform them if we decide to move forward, right? And we're doing this.
I think we should, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know if everybody's comfortable with the, I see that the people are willing to support it, but I don't know if they are all comfortable with the way the document is. Do you think it will be useful if we send some comments and maybe not send it this month, but maybe next one and work it a little bit more with you, John? Will that?
I'm totally fine with that if we feel like waiting a month is a good idea.
Yeah, I would love to send it this month, but I see some hesitations and people have comments. And so I guess if we maybe work between each other and send you comments and try to have a smaller document or something that we can send and that everybody's happy, and then I think we can move it forward, because at this point I don't know that everybody is supporting the way it is.
Yeah, that works. I think if we're doing a group comment on it, it's not going to get smaller. So I would encourage somebody to join me on editorial, maybe Corey, if you're seems like you have some ideas on how to make this shorter. So you can be the axe man on the words.
So I think my proposal to move this forward is to do that, and then send it, try to share with us, and we will send all of us, whoever wants, comments, and then we'll have a new version for our next meeting, and then vote on that, and then send it to the council if everybody.
Yeah, that's great. That works just fine for me. I'm really thankful for all your feedback on this, and it's definitely a weird issue that has gotten weirder over the last.
I agree with you. It shouldn't go that way, because I think the way it was presented, it wasn't the correct way, and that's why we end like that. But as you said, we need to move forward and not regret what happened in the past. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
And thanks for all the work you've done on this. Just one thing is, I feel like we should give the Transportation Commission a heads up. I mean, they were the lead of this, and I feel like it's a little awkward if we just kind of go in and they're not informed of it, because I think, would it be kicked back to them any further review, or are they kind of done with that on their work plan, and it would, I don't know, I just feel like to be respectful to let them know that this is what we want to do, not that they have to comment on it, but just so they're not blindsided. And
I'm perfectly, I think that's the right call to inform them that we're submitting this. I mean, I wasn't going to inform them that we were submitting anything until we had voted on it, because we're not doing anything until it's voted on. I know that they put a lot into that last report, and they said what they needed to say in that last report, and I don't know what else they want to say or have to say on the matter. And so I think that, I mean, the conversation I had with one of the members was more or less like, yeah, if you got some ideas, go for it, because we tried and this is where it landed. So
Yeah, just
I
that we're going to move forward with this.
And I don't think they need to do anything. I don't think we need their involvement, but just a heads up so that, it would be nice to have their backing. So, just.
Yeah, and we can, if they're into it, great. If so that, yeah, that works. So I guess I would ask, if you want to if anybody has comments, if you could submit them to me, just sort of like comments on the PDF document itself, or I guess that'd be my preference, but then like potentially just in an email if the comment thing on PDFs is not workable on your end. If you could do that by next Friday, January 21st, and then we'll cut that all up and get a memo for the next meeting, and hopefully none of that will be a surprise.
Okay.
Spend 10 minutes on it, not 40.
Okay.
And John, after tonight, I'll share your email with the commission just so everyone has the best way to contact you.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, John, for
And Grace, remind me. Grace, is it approved for like John and I to get on the phone and work through the document together? Okay, I couldn't remember.
Just can't be quorum. Just not more than 4. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Okay. Well, perfect. Thank you very much for your time on this matter, John.
Thanks
So
for the
now,
discussion, everyone.
So now back to our 2022 work plan. So I don't think we have a lot to say for the 6 initiatives that we have. I don't want to revise them, because I don't want to take more of your time. But if anybody has anything regarding the initiatives they are leading that do you need to inform us, please go ahead. I think this is the first month, so I don't think anybody has done anything. So Michelle, you have the work plan after. Are you going to talk about that, or you're going to talk about?
Just a question about the plastic bag policy. Is that something that a working group is going to be established for, or like just to
I guess you have to decide on that. How many people do you want to work with that?
That's a fabulous question. I know that people have asked some of like residents at large, like not commission members, and as well as some commission members. So I don't know. Oops.
So what did you do with the to-go packaging? Did you have a working group or no?
You must have.
So maybe we can.
You did, because Melissa Seeley worked with you on it as a resident.
Yep. Yeah, and so did the students. So yeah. So I think the best way forward would be a working group.
Okay. So I think you have to she has to fill some forms, right, Grace, to open the working group for volunteers, right?
Correct. Yeah, any working group, and I can say more about this in the staff comments, but if you want a working group, which includes members of the public, or a subcommittee, which includes commissioners from other commissions, to work on your initiative, there is a form, and I can hook you up with that. So if you're leading an initiative and you want one of those things, just let me know tonight or shoot me an email after the fact, and we can get that worked out.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
So, yeah, Grace, you want to just shoot it out to me, because I will probably need that then.
Okay. So since we are starting to work in all the initiatives, I just want to remind all of you that there are some initiatives that they don't have leaders. I think there's a couple of them, so I don't know if anybody wants to volunteer. And also, if there's any commissioner that is not in any initiative, maybe if you want to write down in one of them. Because the last document you sent us, Grace, it didn't have, I think 2 of them didn't have leaders, right?
I
For example,
am,
initiative number 3.
yes, it's because it's a review and comment. So some kind of report will come to the commission from Twyla, the organics recycling coordinator, and then the commission as a whole will comment on that.
So for this one, we don't need to do anything. We were planning to do.
You will respond to any requests from the organics recycling coordinator. So she may reach out.
She already reached out, and she wants us to help her out with
Great, good.
with promoting the. So for that, we need volunteers. So I guess if anybody is interested in that, you can send Grace your names, right? So we can include them. Is that
Yep.
correct?
Yeah, if you can maybe I can circle up with Twyla to find out what the request was so that people know what they're
Yeah, I can
responding
send it
to.
you. I talked with her
Mhm.
today, so maybe I can send you what she wants us to do.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So to your point, Hilda, I think on number 3, you're welcome to identify a lead, but it isn't required for the completion of the work plan initiative as council approved it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I guess I don't know if I'm correct, nobody has anything to report on the initiatives. Is that right? Okay, so then Michelle, it's you with the green. The next item is that you with the Green Business Recognition Program, which.
So, Grace, did you want me to just go on our what our role is, or
I think this is a perfect segue because we were just talking about what is a working group, why would you want one for your initiative, and you are proposing that this working group description be approved so that you can start recruiting volunteers.
oh, that's right, because we have to renew. So we have to kind of renew our working group for this program, even though it's ongoing. And so we rewrote kind of the volunteer communication, and so basically we just need, and we've got actually some new people starting, which has been great. So we've got a nice mass of people helping out, but it's just basically we are going to be recruiting new businesses and maintaining the current businesses. Our role will be to review and approve any of the applications that come through and provide assistance for any new businesses that want to apply. And then we'd also be charged with promoting and marketing the program. And we met as a group on Tuesdays. We established a once-a-month meeting, which will be the second Tuesday of each month. And there may be 1 or 2 dates that stray from that. So it's the same week that we have our commission meeting. And we've already kind of come up with a plan for a year, figuring out how we are going to try and approach some of these things. And so I'm kind of excited that we've got a pretty good energetic group. So it's great to have more. I think everybody that's already been on is staying on. And yeah, anything else that I need to report on, Grace?
Nope. I think the only thing is that, working groups and subcommittees are both annual commitments. So even with an ongoing initiative, every 12 months, the volunteers have the option to roll off if they don't want to do it anymore. And it also opens the door for anyone new who wants to join. So Michelle's walking through that administrative process now.
Okay, perfect. Do we need to vote for that? No, it's a program. Okay.
Just an opportunity to comment.
Okay. No, anybody has comments on what Michelle sent us? Well, thank you, Michelle. Okay, so our item number 7 has to do with chair and member comments. So I'm going to start with some, and then I will open the door if anybody wants to do some comments. Well, I'm just want to tell you that next meeting we need to vote again for the chair and the co-chair. So I'm happy to do it another year, but if anybody wants to step in, I will be happy to step down. So please think about it. And we need to vote next month. It's a very exciting position, so think about it. You will like it. So if anybody wants to, I'm open to stepping down and you taking my role. And for my part is that. So I don't know if any other member has any comment.
And I just want to add, same, I'm vice, but I think I term off in a year. So if anybody wants the opportunity to get a little bit of experience in this, feel free. I'm open to new blood coming in.
Thank you, Michelle. John?
I have a comment about the communications presentation earlier. I thought that was awesome. I think we essentially need a standing person who's sort of in charge of the communications calendar, and maybe one or two people. I mean, almost like a de facto work plan item, even though it won't be on the list. And one or two people to support with that and help sort of like ideate as a breakout group. I think we have. It seems like we have enough available to us that are concerned about not getting our message out, which we all talked about at one point or another last year. I think our concerns are significantly, well, we need to give it a shot, and we certainly have enough tools to justify spending time on this. So I don't know how we move forward with that, if we just sort of informally like have it as a pretend work plan.
Can it be a leadership role? You know, you have chair, vice chair, communication, something. But because I do agree with John, I feel like, yes, we could react to things and get you, Grace, get you stuff, but I just think we're going to miss the boat. Like, I think we have to be deliberate because, again, we all have busy lives. We are not thinking, oh, yeah, I got to remember to get in touch with Grace before, you know, it's always going to be last minute. And I think we're going to miss those opportunities unless we're super deliberate. And there's just all these different channels that I think, yeah, I think we have to try and get to all of them and blast people with as many channels. And I think that can only be done by somebody who knows that calendar.
I agree with you. I think maybe we can do a calendar and trying to maybe define each person for a month or for, I don't know, 8 topics or something like that. I don't know. What do you suggest, Grace?
Yeah, I think that you can definitely move forward with having a point person on communications. The way I would structure it is basically that, at least initially, that person works with the work plan initiative leads to identify within that initiative what kind of comms needs or opportunities they have. And that way we can tie the actions of this. We can tie these comms actions directly to existing work plan items rather than looking like we're creating a new structure or a new work plan initiative. So that's my suggestion. Perhaps folks can shoot me an email if you would like to be the point person, and we can go from there. But structure-wise, yeah, and I can help connect the dots between commissioners who are interested in it. So, but yeah, structure-wise, I think we should try to stay within the existing work plan structure as much as we can.
Yeah, I guess I have that's one way to go, but I guess another approach is if we have 7 initiatives, why don't we just bake a communications effort into each one of the initiatives? I struggle with how one person is going to lead the communications efforts across the 7 events. I thought during our conversation, Grace, you were saying, let's bake the communication plans right into the initiatives, feed them to you, and then you go to Jennifer, and that's how it happens.
One idea, Tom, off of that is that we can look to the leads of the initiative or, to the involved members in each initiative to identify the comms items. But I liked the suggestion that that be a standing agenda item that we always, every month, the expectation is that that you all are coming with any communications requests or recommendations. And that way the commission can look at all of them as a whole. So that we can say, oh, wow, 5 work plan items want social media pushes in the next month. Does that make sense? Do we need to break these up a little bit or something like that? So I'm quite open either way.
I think the standing agenda item is smart. I see the communications point person as more of like an air traffic controller than like some kind of like, I don't know, like puppeteer. Like more or less just making sure their stuff is like falling in line in logical order and sequence, and like, oh, by the way, we have the opportunity to put 500 words in the Sun Current this year. Maybe we should shoot for 2 of those and then sort of like filling those spaces with stuff that's sort of, like maybe it's one of the work plan items. Somebody thinks it should be a Sun Current item, a Sun Current article, but we already have too many of those. Sort of helping figure out what fits where, and then giving clear guidance to Grace and to the communications team.
And
I don't think it's
so,
going to be crazy amount of work.
yeah, and so John, I almost think the way you describe it, and Hilda and Michelle, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think that falls into the chair, vice chair roles of kind of managing the strategy and leadership and meeting flow. And so I think, as usual, the chair and myself can work together on that air traffic control piece. So I'll include that starting in February. We'll have a standing agenda item about communications, and we can cover it each month.
Okay, sure. Anybody else has comments?
Yeah, Hilda, my only other comment, I don't know if people saw the Star Tribune today, but St. Paul has publicly come out and said that their full city council, all 7 members, are supporting a vote on declaring a climate emergency. And I'm just very disappointed that we as Edina did not make that recommendation. We've got Minneapolis, who already has, St. Paul, who's doing it next Wednesday, and that's 2 cities of 800,000 people total, and we're a little town of 50K, and we were worried about people panicking in the streets because we said the word emergency, and I just don't think we were bold, and I'm not too proud that we didn't take that step. That's it. I don't know if we have the ability to change our stance there, but I think we missed a great opportunity.
So I don't know even, thank you, Corey, I didn't see that, but I don't know where is that, is it, what was the last agreement with the council that you met, Grace? What did they decide to do?
The council is hearing a proposed climate declaration on their next meeting on the 19th of January. It does not contain the word emergency. Your comments from December were shared with Council Member Jackson, who's leading the declaration development, and she received them and decided to keep the language the same.
And my question is there anything we can do to kind of appeal that?
You can write an advisory communication. So the comments tonight, so your December comments are captured in the minutes, so they're public record, and your comments tonight are captured in the public record, not attributed to any particular commissioner. You can always, as an individual resident, you can always email the council or the mayor and express your opinion on something. Since it's on the agenda on the 19th, you cannot do a community comment on that evening. So you could after the fact. But I think those are all your options.
You could send an email to a council member if you feel strongly about it too.
Yep.
Okay.
My question to you, Grace, sorry. So did the council hear our meeting last time we met and talked about that issue, or is it just Council Member Jackson just had that? And
Council Member Jackson and the mayor are the ones who received your comments ahead of time. So typically they only receive any commission comments when they receive the minutes. But since this was more time sensitive, I emailed it to them the day after our last meeting. So I don't know if they shared it with the full council, and I don't know if any council members watched the EEC meeting last time.
But then how are they going to make a full decision on something that they didn't even hear from the commission itself? Forget about the public or the residents. We as a commission just voiced that in our last meeting. So without that backstory, I don't know how are they going to make that full decision as to not vote for a as a climate emergency. I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you. Councilmember Jackson prepared the resolution and is proposing it. So it's not a full council proposal. It's coming from an individual council member. That's why the full council wasn't involved in the preparation of the language beyond what Councilmember Jackson might have invited herself. So it's
Let's
a
say, uh-huh.
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, let's say the resolution passed and for some reason they just choose to use that instead of climate emergency. Can we, how can we like have our voices in there to, are they gonna implement it right away, or can we have like a public input on that?
There is very little to implement. It's a declaration asking the state and federal government to support city climate action that's already underway. So there is not a follow-up action really beyond existing advocacy pathways. You can, however, to your question about commenting on the resolution, you can always comment on it. You can email them, like John said, before the fact, and you can comment on it in a public forum at a council meeting after the fact. So they would next meet, I think, on February 1st.
Okay.
I mean, Grace, it feels like the ship sailed in terms of this resolution, probably, in terms of our opportunity as a commission to influence that. I'm just saying, as a commission, I want to ask that we're bolder in the future and not talk ourselves out of things like that, when I think in our hearts we all know that that probably would have been a better thing to do. So that's all I had to say.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else has any comment? Okay, so the next item in the agenda is staff comments. So Grace, I don't know if you have any comments for us.
Yes, just a couple items. The city is recruiting for new commissioners. The EEC will receive one new commissioner this year, and those applications close tomorrow. So if you know anyone who's been on the fence about applying, certainly encourage them to do so by end of day tomorrow. A couple logistics since we're at the start of the year. So the first one on the 2022 work plan, if you are a lead on that initiative and you want contact info for the other people on your initiative, let me know if you don't have it already. To avoid, so anytime more than 4 of you all are in a room, we have a quorum problem and it becomes a public meeting. So the contact information is not shared just like as a contact sheet. But anytime you need anything, just shoot me a note and I will get you the contact info for the commissioners that you need. The other item is that if you have agenda items or actions on the work plan initiatives that you're leading or participating in, just let Hilda or I know ahead, or Michelle for that matter, ahead of our next meeting so that we can make sure to call it out as a specific agenda item on the agenda. That just helps us keep things moving smoothly. And finally, we are meeting virtually again next month. The virtual public meetings requirement set by the council was for all of January and all of February, and I imagine they will revisit that sometime in February, but know that we're back on WebEx next month. That covers it from me. Thank you, Chair Martinez.
Okay, thank you, Grace. So our last item is the adjournment. So I don't know if somebody wants to make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. So Grace, can you do the roll call?
Commissioner Haugen?
Aye.
Commissioner Haran?
Aye.
Commissioner Hovanek?
Aye.
Commissioner Lukens?
Aye.
Commissioner Tessman?
Aye.
Commissioner Takane?
Mute.
Yeah, I think you might be muted.
Aye.
Thanks.
Yeah.
and Chair Martinez.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned at 9:02. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
nice
you.
to see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
All right, good night. Good night.